All set, Dorothy? Great. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Audit and Finance Standing Committee meeting of April 16th, 2025. My name is Kathy Daigle-Gammon. I am a councillor with District 1, Waverley, Fall River, Musquodoboit Valley. Our staff today with us, Legislative Assistant is Dorothy Maponga. Dave Hurley is here, Director of Finance Management and Operations, and John Traves, who is the Municipal Solicitor and the Chief Governance Officer. So we'll call the meeting to order and say that our land acknowledgement that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. To approval of the minutes of March 20th, 2025. Okay. Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Hensby. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. And approval of additions or deletions. Dorothy, do we have any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you so much. Business rising out of the minutes, there are none. Call for the declaration of conflict of interests. Seeing none. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Consideration of deferred business, there is none. Notice of tabled matters, there is none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Dorothy, do we have any of the three?
No correspondence or petitions has been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you. And we have no presentations. Can move on to public participation. We had no speakers signed up in advance, but we'll call from the gallery. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? For the third and final time, is there anyone from the gallery that wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on. Information items brought forward, there are none. So we move to the best part of our agenda, the reports. 13.1.1 is a follow-up review of the 2022-23 audits. And we welcome Andrew Atherton, our Auditor General, who will provide a presentation on the follow-up review for the audits, and we'll answer any questions from the committee. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. I've got a few topics that I'm going to cover with you today. Up first, I'd like to talk about some follow-up work that my team have completed. You're going to see a couple of different reports. I'm going to start with our review of the 2022-2023 audits. Just make sure I pull up the right presentation here. Bear with me. So this looks at two of our audits. First one's a mouthful. Corporate real estate development and sale of industrial lands, land and building acquisition and disposal. I'm going to just refer to that one as real estate audit from now on. The second audit is on Halifax Water's SCADA system. So I'm going to start with the real estate audit. We had 7 recommendations when we originally released this audit in December of 2022, and as of this review, 5 of those are complete. That leaves 2 for you folks to discuss with management and ascertain the status and current plans for completion. You'll see the listing of all of those recommendations starting on page 4 of that report. I'm going to deviate briefly to explain my approach that I'm going to start taking on follow-up when I'm here to talk with you folks. I'm really going to focus on just providing you a snapshot of completion. When my team look at these recommendations, we're not considering a level or percentage of completion within each recommendation. We're only able to look to see if they are finished, 100% complete, or not finished. That leaves a lot of gray area or of work in progress that we can't speak to. Now, typically when I make these reports, we'll have some level of management here with us, and those are the folks that can tell you the story behind my numbers. They can talk about work underway and plans for the future. As I said, we're not looking at anything that management tells us is incomplete, anything we determine, we're just looking to see that it is fully done. For us to get into the nitty gritty and assess a level of completion and provide audit assurance on that would simply take far too much time, and we wouldn't be able to get to new audits. So I'm trying to find a balance in our work of getting new audits while also giving some assurance on follow-up. So that means that we're just going to tell you, in this case, 5 out of 7 are complete. The other 2, I encourage you to talk to management and try to get some information there. So, and also on that front, I do want to, I guess, give some credit, make note of a couple of things that have happened. I saw Deputy Mayor Mancini's motion last week for a status update on some outstanding recommendations. That's fantastic. And I know in discussions with our CAO, she's implementing a monitoring process, an internal monitoring process that's going to help her stay on top of what's happening. Both of those are really good steps that are going to help move the completion percentages forward. So with that, I'm going to move along to the second audit that we reviewed in this report. That looks at Halifax Water. Now, you'll see on the front page of our audit report that we had a total of 38% of recommendations that were complete. Now, that combines in-camera and public recommendations. For now, I'm going to speak to the public recommendations, and we found only 10 of the 21 were complete, leaving 11 to be addressed. The detailed listing of those recommendations for both complete and incomplete can be found starting on page 5. As I just said, that's all I'm going to say on the Halifax Water Public Report. I would like to leave the in-camera discussion until I have covered my second report, this one looking at outstanding recommendations from 2 audits that we previously followed up in 2023. One of those chapters also has some in-camera recommendations, so it just seems more efficient to hold off and do those at the same time. So the first audit here was our look at building permits and inspections from 2020. We had 3 recommendations in our original audit, and while none of these were addressed in 2023, I'm happy to report all 3 are complete at this time. Second audit covered in this report is our 2021 look at Halifax Regional Police's information technology. You can see that 92% of our total recommendations were complete when we checked in 2023, and the same number are complete today. I should note this is the other audit with an in-camera component, which we'll discuss shortly. So obviously, if the total hasn't changed, no new recommendations have been addressed. You can see on page 5 of this report that we only had 1 outstanding public recommendation in 2023, and this remains incomplete today. I will note HRMIT has apparently taken over responsibility of this area from HRP, so they will hopefully be able to carry this one last recommendation over the finish line in the not too distant future. So as I said earlier, this is really all that I'm able to speak to at this point. I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions you may have on my process or why I'm doing different things, but in terms of getting the full story of what is happening, why things are not yet complete, and when they can be expected to be finished, you'll need to talk to the folks responsible for these various areas. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to all of you and take any questions that you may have for me or for management.
I see no names. Oh, Councillor Morse, thank you.
Sorry, I thought we'd be a little bit longer. So are you able to say anything about Halifax Water Audit? Can you talk a bit about the governance issues between Regional Council and Halifax Water, or?
At this point, I mean, I can walk through the recommendations and say what's complete and what's not complete. That's all in the report. That's all that we've looked at in this situation. So we've looked anything that we have indicated is complete. My team have done a limited assurance engagement to see that that's reasonable. Beyond that, I wouldn't want to comment on anything else that's going on with Halifax Water.
That's for the in-camera.
Well, for the in-camera, we'll talk about the recommendations that were made in camera and the status of those ones.
Okay, great, thank you.
Seeing no other names on the list, I do have one question of real estate. The two recommendations that are not yet completed, I'm wondering if someone from real estate will be able to talk about where we're at on those two remaining recommendations, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Peter Stickings, Director of Corporate Real Estate. So the two outstanding recommendations are more of focusing on longer term. So they're a little bit meatier than the five that we've knocked off. So we've got a number of things in flight with our partners in planning development, our industrial land strategy update. So we provided a fairly detailed update to the CAO, but we're tracking to complete the remaining two recommendations by September of this year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that response. No other questions for the public portion here. So would a councillor like to make a motion to go in camera? Thank you, Councillor Morse, seconded by Councillor Gillis. We'll just take a moment and we'll get ready for our in-camera session. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. And now we are back in public again. And our item is 13.1.2, which is a follow-up review of outstanding recommendations of the 2022-21 audits. And we have Andrew Atherton here. Now, I know that you did that in the beginning, but it was listed on the agenda as a separate item. So, members of council, if you have any questions of our Auditor General on the outstanding recommendations, they're the ones that were real estate and building permits, I believe. Right?
It would have been building permits and Halifax Regional Police IT were the.
So I see no names on the list, and there is no motion associated with it. So we can then move on to 13.1.3, which is the 24-25 annual report and 2025-26 audit priorities. And you're up again, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, so as the chair just said, I'll now move on to discuss my annual report, touch on my audit priorities for the upcoming year. So nothing earth-shattering in the annual report. You've heard much of it either during my budget presentation or previous audit presentations. You can see early on in the report a bit of history of the office. I'm going to call it almost a year and a half into my term. Also, you'll see a snapshot of our mission, vision, values. I talked about that a little in the budget. So I'm not going to go into any of those things. I'm going to move on. I'm going to get into a bit more into the details with a look at the new audits completed in the last year. So we were able to complete 4 new projects last year, 3 planned audits, and 1 council requested review. In July, we released our work on business continuity planning and enterprise risk management. Together, those had 24 recommendations for improvement. And then in December, we released our audit of diversity and inclusion practices with another 8 recommendations, along with our review of supplemental education funding for HRCE. So that is what we did in audit and review. Looking at the follow-up work that we completed, much of what you see here, you just heard about. Today, in addition to today's reports, we also completed our second looks at 2 audits, LED streetlight conversion and fleet vehicle use, car allowances, and mileage audits. You've all seen the results from this work, and I will reference it again shortly when I talk about our performance measures, but that's the list of what we have accomplished this year. So what are we working on now? You're going to see I'm going to call it a slight dip in volume on this. My office is currently working around 2 vacant auditor positions. One is an auditor role that has been filled, but our new staff member won't be able to start until later this spring, and a manager role that just recently became vacant. So we're in the early stages of advertising to try to fill that role. That leaves me a little shorthanded. I've only got 5 of the 7 staff that I would usually have to complete audit work. So that's why you see 2 audits underway at this time. Our work on winter operations is moving along nicely, and our recreation programming planning audit is in the early stages of fieldwork. I'm not going to commit to a specific reporting time frame for either of these. My team would shoot me when I get back if I make promises that I haven't told them about, but our goal is early summer for winter operations and likely early in the fall for the recreation audit. So before I get into what we're planning for the future, let's talk a little bit about our performance metrics. We have 3 that we talk about annually: audit versus non-audit hours, recommendation acceptance rates, and implementation rates. You can see here that we were able to keep our audit hours above our target, with 88% of staff time targeted to audit activities. As mentioned earlier, my challenge right now is not having enough auditors, but those that I do have are doing everything that can be asked of them. Moving on to our recommendations, while management continues to agree with 100% of our recommendations, you can see the implementation rate in total was only 43% this year. That's lower than our rate of 51% last year. And I've talked on this, and I'm happy to hear you guys are continuing to seek more information, and management is, or the CAO's office in particular, is moving to do a little more tracking of this, and I hope that all of that work is going to lead to some increases in those implementation rates. On our end, we'll continue to work closely with management when we release our reports to ensure they support the recommendations we make. And hopefully with your assistance, we'll start to see those rates go up. So, moving into our audit priorities for the upcoming year. Now you're going to see a couple of audits rolled forward from last year. That's the capital budgeting audit and our facility infrastructure management and maintenance audit. The addition of the supplemental funding at HRCE combined with the staff shortages mean we simply haven't had the ability to get everything done, so these two have come forward to be looked at in the coming year. In terms of stuff I haven't talked about yet, I see a couple of audits. One is a municipality-wide look at performance measurement and reporting, along with completing our hiring practices audit. So we did that municipality-wide a couple of years ago, and we're going to do that at Halifax Water. Just to talk quickly on each of those, performance measurement and reporting, for me, it's such an important task to give everybody the information needed to know whether goals and plans, whether that's at a program, business unit, or municipal-wide level, whether those are being achieved. We'll consider how the municipality is doing this, look right across the business units and see what's happening there. For the hiring practices audit, our original audit identified some significant areas for improvement within HRM, but it didn't cover Halifax Water. So when I looked at that after I started, I said, you know what, I think I'd like to roll that out at Halifax Water and see where things stand there. So the timing and details of each of those audits will be determined as my team works through their planning processes, and we'll work with management, but the goal is to get them at least started in this fiscal year. In addition to new audits, we'll have a bunch of planned follow-up work that we want to get to this year, stuff that's either come up at the 18 months since we released the original audit or 18 months since we did a first follow-up to look at the outstanding recommendations. So you can see a fairly lengthy list there, and completing all of that's my ideal outcome, but the vacancies may slow some of this down. My intention is to do all we can to revisit it, but we'll see where we get to. You can see 4 audits that will hit the 18-month mark during the year, including cybersecurity and hiring practices, along with 4 audits that will be due for a second look, including respectful workplaces. You may recall I reported on that one early in my term, so early last year, and it had only 5 of 15 recommendations complete at that time. I'll be interested to see the progress on the remaining 10. Okay, I think you've heard enough from me today. I'm going to turn it back to you folks. If you have any questions for me on my plans or the work that's been done, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Andrew. Members of the committee, do you have any questions? Councillor St. Amand.
Real simple question. On the basis of the items that you do have on your agenda, and you noted that you're a little short-staffed at the moment, what one thing might appear on that list were you at full strength now?
So you mean what other audit might be on there?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. We have such a long list, Councillor. So many things that we could consider. And I'm hesitant to say anything. One of my practices is to make sure that I talk to management before I release this so they know, so they don't hear in the media or by listening to this session that I'm looking at auditing them. So I'm hesitant to put another name out there without having talked about it.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Councillor Morse.
Thank you. Are your audits going to help council get a better understanding of our unfunded infrastructure maintenance situation? I feel like council still doesn't maybe fully understand what our debts or what we'll owe in the future to maintain our roads and other and bridges and other key infrastructure that we have. So will you help identify some of those deficits going forward?
We haven't done the detailed planning for that one yet to narrow down exactly what we're going to do. But I would suggest that what you're talking about is absolutely part of what my concerns are and why that audit is on the list. So I would hope, whether it gives you specifics or gives you a general story, I would hope that it will absolutely help you better understand what that situation is. But until I get my team in and on the ground and talking to the management of that area, I can't say exactly what it will look at, but generally speaking, yes, that's part of what I would like us to cover.
Okay, because we have 3.5 years left in our mandate. It'll probably take a while for your audit to happen, so, and we need to do some long-range planning. I'm just wondering how this is going to come together, if you have a sense of that timeline.
I don't have I've got the 2 audits underway right now. I believe, I can't remember if that one's next on the list or if I think we may be looking at trying to do the hiring at Halifax Water, because it's we have an audit plan for that. I can do that one a little bit quicker while I have a part of the team do some planning for the infrastructure one. As I said, I would hope that we will be doing field work, if not complete field work, by this time next year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. I see no other questions from members of the committee. Thank you very much, our Auditor General, Andrew Arthurton. We'll move on to item 14, which is motions. There are none. And in camera, we did discuss 15.1 and we did do 15.2 already while we were in camera. So we're now to added items, and there are none. Notices of motion. There are none. Seeing none, the date of our next meeting is May 21st, 2025, and we will ask for a motion to adjourn.